Yes, Kathy? Have we got the go-ahead? We've got it. All right, great. Hey! Well, we're live. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. The cat is meowing. Do you think you could go give him some treats or something? Because he keeps scratching at the door. Yeah. Thank you. Just tell him not during the live show. Please. All right. Thank you, Kathy. Treats. Yes. Treats. Chicken treats. Yes. What? They're in the thing. Yeah. Yes. All right. We're live. Kathy says we're live. Kathy's going to go get some cat treats for my cat so that he will stop meowing. And let's see. Well, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about, topic today is childhood and growing up. I'll be your teacher for this live lesson. My name is Luke. I'm an American English teacher. I've been teaching English for a long time. And I think this is an interesting topic. We're going to be looking at a few different things. We'll be looking at some phrasal verbs that are related to our topic. I'm going to be sharing a few personal things, of course. How could you not? We're going to be looking at the connection between learning languages and things you could do in childhood to improve, which I think is a very interesting one. We're going to be looking at a conclusion of a paper that I recently found, and a bunch of other stuff. And of course, as usual, we'll do our Q&A. So if you have questions about the topic or anything else, pronunciation, culture, grammar, vocabulary, phrases, whatever it may be, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to get to all the questions, of course. What else? Before we get started, as I said, my name is Luke. I'm an English teacher. I do these lessons. I also make courses. I will have a new course coming out in a couple of days called Common English Mistakes and How to Fix Them. So I'm excited for that. That should be out. I'll have that in the links. In the meantime, if you want, you can click on the first link in the description, and that should be a free course. So feel free to sign up for a free English course. In the link in the description, there are some other links too if you want to take longer courses, more complete courses, but maybe start with the free one, see how you like it, and go from there. It is Wednesday, January 27th. I hope everybody had a good weekend. I did. Recently, a lot of people have been visiting on weekends, so I've been busier than usual on weekends, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, of course. However, it's nice to have a weekend to just relax. So maybe in a month or two I'll be able to do that. It's still very hot, of course. That's why I'm wearing a hoodie. But the AC is blasting, so I'm wearing a hoodie because it's actually quite cool, as a matter of fact. Pandit from Nepal is here, and Nihat, hello. Dimitri, great to have you. Special video for IELTS. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a full IELTS course, as a matter of fact. IELTS and TOEFL, as a matter of fact. But if I do, it probably won't be until either later this year or next year. We'll see how it goes. All right. Well, I think we can kick it off. We got more people joining. That's fantastic. Namira is here from Pakistan. How to use used to. Why don't we start off with a question, then we'll really get into the topic, okay? And actually, I can connect it to our topic. So, Pandit says how to use used to. And this is interesting because it has two primary meanings, okay? One is about comfort, and we can kind of replace it with an adjective. And the other is about things that happened in the past that no longer happen, usually. So the first meaning then would be I am used to it. Okay? We are used to it. I'm not used to it yet. Okay? So, for example, recently I've been more often on the blackboard during lessons. And that's something that wasn't super easy for me to do at first, right? And the reason for that, I think, was just, it takes practice, and over time you get more comfortable, right? So why don't we quickly hop over to the blackboard, since I mentioned it, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we go. Used to. Now, if you're, filming a video and you have a blackboard, it can be a little awkward sometimes to feel comfortable doing that, right? You have to think about the camera and other stuff going on, all the equipment. Has a lot to think about, so it's easy to make mistakes and something goes wrong, all of that, right? But after doing it for a while, you start to feel comfortable. So then if someone says, well, how are you feeling about doing the blackboard thing? You can say, I am, and maybe we can say getting because it's still moving. I am getting used to it. Okay? If I'm not comfortable because I just started doing it, we could say I am, and then we replace getting with not. I am not used to it. I'm getting used to writing on a digital blackboard. Okay. Or if I'm completely comfortable with it, then we would get rid of both of these and just say, I'm used to it. I'm used to it. Now, what does that mean? Well, we could say it's accustomed to, or we could say comfortable with, right? If we wanted to replace this with comfortable, we would say, I am comfortable with it. Okay? I'm used to it. I'm comfortable with it. So in a sense, this expression here, used to, is an adjective. To be used to something or not used to something is to be comfortable with it or accustomed to it, or not comfortable with it, not accustomed to it. Or we could say getting used to is similar to I'm adjusting. Now that is what I'm doing, but it still describes my feeling about it, okay? So that's the basic idea. If we add getting, it's more of a process I'm in the middle of. So that's meaning number one. But the other one is really different. I used to live in China, which is true about me, for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, I don't know how many years. I used to live in China. Now, does this mean that I'm adjusted, I'm comfortable with it? No. Does it mean I still live there? No. What it means is, for a period of time, this is what I did. What did I do? I lived in China. I used to live in China. I no longer do. And it's usually not a single thing. If we say used to, we're talking about, if this is our timeline and this is the past, a kind of, we could call it a duration. A duration which may have a clear beginning and a clear end, or maybe not, honestly. And then here we are up here now, right? So we're not there anymore. Now, this is a kind of condition that was true in the past. Sometimes we use this for regular activities in the past. For example, I could say, I used to eat a lot of junk food. Do I still eat a lot of junk food? No, but I used to in the past. But that's not a specific maybe beginning and end. That's a kind of ongoing activity that happens periodically, regularly, right? I used to eat a lot of junk food. I used to go swimming every summer. So during the winter, I would not, but during the summer, I would. Maybe now I don't have the opportunity to swim as often. Okay, so there you go. So those are the two common meanings of used to. And don't try to make connections between them. Don't try to find a link because there isn't one. It has these two meanings. Both of them are very common. You have to kind of learn them by example. And if you start doing it, you'll get used to it. And eventually you'll be able to say, I used to have no idea how to use used to, but now I feel very comfortable with it. The best thing to do, I think, is to just practice examples. Hope that answers your question, Pundit or Pandit, or however you say your name. Nazuk, could you please tell us a funny story about? Yeah, I plan on relaying some things about my childhood. I hope if anyone has any really interesting childhood stories that they'd really like to share, I want to offer something. If you would like to get on the stream and share it, I'd be very interested. But if it's just a boring thing, like when I was a kid, I used to eat a lot of raspberries, I don't really care so much. But if you have a really interesting childhood story, I'd like to hear it. Let me know, and I can pop the link to you in the chat. Okay. Am I a native English speaker? Yes, I am. If you don't know, my name is Luke. My profession is an English teacher. I'm an American English speaker. I'm from Ohio, currently live in New York State, but have been teaching English for about 10 years. And mainly what I do is I make courses for English learners to improve their English. They've been taken by over 200,000 students, which is pretty crazy to think about. Over 200,000 students have taken my courses from over 190 countries around the world. And the average reviews of the courses are, I believe, 4.6 out of 5, I think, which is quite high. And so that's, I've been doing that for a while, and I will continue to do it. So feel free to check out my courses. You can also get a free course if you like. If you check the links in the description, you can actually sign up for a free course. So go ahead and do that. Of course, it is my job as well. It's how I support myself. So if you'd like to really get serious and take a longer course, you're supporting me directly if you sign up for example, a yearly membership on my website or an individual course too. Much appreciated. Okay. Tell us a funny story. I can like your classes a lot, but I would recommend if you remove the question and put only the lesson, like Bob the Canadian. Remove the questions and do only the lesson like Bob. I always hear about Bob the Canadian. I think I've seen him on YouTube. I think I know what he does. He doesn't take questions. Okay, well, fair enough. I like to take questions as a kind of break. I do have some things I want to share. We're going to be talking about some phrasal verbs. But Marzouk, I do appreciate the feedback. Definitely. Sir, isn't it hard to speak slowly like the present? I would say no, it isn't. And actually, I don't think I'm speaking that slowly. That's close to how I normally speak, as a matter of fact. Okay. Okay, well, let's so as I mentioned, I'm from Ohio. I grew up in Ohio, so I spent the first 18 or 19 years of my life there. I grew up in a relatively small town, actually outside of a small town, kind of in the countryside. The town that I'm from, I think it has a population of about 1,500, so quite a small town. And I was raised in kind of a countryside area near a very large dairy farm. And I was raised by my two parents and I also have two brothers, one older and one younger. So what's it like to have a childhood growing up in the countryside in the United States? Did I have a normal childhood? I would say that there are things about my childhood which are typical and other things which are not typical, things which are not very common. So maybe a few typical things and a few atypical things. Like other kids, I had friends that I would go play with. Growing up, regular friends, going out with neighbors, doing fun stuff, having sleepovers, all of that stuff was I think pretty typical for a lot of American kids growing up in that time. I was born in 1988, so we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have iPads, but we did have video games. But there was an exception for me. My parents decided that they didn't want to have a TV in the house. And I think they decided that because they didn't want their kids, their three sons, to just stare at a TV all day and not really engage with the world. Now, at the time when I was a kid, I would look around at my friends and feel obviously not too happy about that because they all had TV and watched movies all the time and watched a lot of cartoons and played a lot of video games. But I didn't get to do a lot of that because we didn't have a TV at home. Now I think that that was actually a very wise decision of them in hindsight as an adult. So I was a weird kid in that sense. My friends all thought that was crazy that we didn't have a TV. But then what did I do instead of having a TV? And this is where I realized the wisdom of my parents. They had a TV, they got rid of it when they had kids, and instead we played with Legos. We went outside and built forts in the woods. We went outside and just played in general. We made things, we created things. They encouraged us to do art and to go out for the whole day into the forest and just walk around and explore things. They would play classical music while we played with Legos. They bought us books. They gave us great books to read. I read a series of books when I was a kid, very, very early, about famous people, biographies of famous people. So we were reading a lot, and they would read to us a lot. We had a story time. My dad would make up these insane stories about this time traveler who would go to different periods of history. We drank tea together. We played games. So what I realize is, instead of sitting around watching TV, we did stuff together. And as a result, I think I developed a sense of creativity and a sense of play that I'm really grateful to my parents for. And if and when I have kids, I think I might do the same thing. Maybe not get rid of the TV, but pretty much just leave it off all the time. But on the other hand, because I didn't have a TV, when I got the chance to watch TV and movies, I did it a lot. It would be a big treat for me to go to my grandma's house and watch cartoons on Saturday morning, or to go over to a friend's house and play video games. I didn't have a TV until I think I was 13 or 14. And then I really got into video games. But that first 13 years, no TV, I think was pretty interesting. And I don't think I regret that at all. And I think it's not a bad idea to get rid of screens, kind of force that creativity. The other weird thing about our family is that we were homeschooled, at least for the first different ages. I think I was homeschooled until 8th or 9th grade. My older brother, maybe 7th or 8th grade. And then my little brother was homeschooled until maybe 3rd or 4th grade. I don't remember. And that was another kind of weird thing. So my friends were not really my classmates. People my age, they were all friends with other people in our class. The school was, you could walk there in 5 minutes, but I didn't go to that school because I was homeschooled. So I knew some of those kids, but we weren't very close. So my friend situation was a little weird. My friends were neighbors because they lived nearby, and other kids who were homeschooled because there were homeschool groups where parents and their kids would get together and do activities, field trips, things like that. So I had some other homeschool kid friends, but it's not like we saw each other every single day. So a lot of my social interactions were with just people in my family, my two brothers, my parents, and then once in a while I would play with the neighbor kid or play with someone in a homeschool group. But it was different from other kids my age who got to see their peers every single day, 5 days a week at school. I don't know if that affected me socially too much, but I think a little bit it did. I think I don't very closely identify with a lot of people my age. I even now feel kind of distant from people who are my age, and it's not that I have trouble making friends, but I don't have a strong desire to make a lot of friends. So I think I've always been less social, maybe because of that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's definitely kind of an unusual, sort of odd thing about my childhood that's not very typical. But the homeschooling itself, I think, was great. I would usually finish school at 1 p.m. I had a specific amount of work to do. I would get it done very quickly. And I had some specific things I had to learn because there are state tests you have to take. But I could also pursue interests. If I wanted to read more of this or follow more of that, I could do that. Also, my brother, who is 2 years older than me, he would always be learning things that I didn't know, and I would feel kind of competitive with him and try to learn that anyway. So I had a chance to kind of stretch myself and push myself to learn things that he was learning, even if I didn't get everything. So when I actually went to public school around the age of, again, I think maybe 14, something like that, around age 14, what they were learning was pretty easy. I was afraid that it was going to be really difficult, that I would be way behind. Actually, I found out when I went to public school that I was way ahead because of being able to learn stuff at my own pace instead of learning at the same pace as everyone else. But then, growing up homeschooled, finishing at 1 p.m., I also got to have a lot of time to play, ride my bicycle, do what I wanted to do. So that's the typical atypical stuff that happened in my childhood. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was unusual or weird. A family life, I would say, was very typical. So my father's side, the family is relatively small and lived farther away. So his parents and my grandparents on that side, and he had one sister, they lived kind of far away. So I got to see them less. But on my mother's side, there are many more of them. My mother has four brothers and sisters, four siblings, and her parents, my grandparents, they're in their 80s, but they're doing very well. And we would always, maybe once a week, go over and eat junk food and watch TV. And Thanksgiving is always a big thing. There are so many grandkids now, that they're grandkids and great grandkids, and I think now even great great grandkids. I think some of the grandkids of my grandma on my mother's side, they have kids now. Yeah, so she has some, I think she has some great great grandkids now. So Thanksgiving or Christmas, any big family event, is 50 people or something like that. It's a huge thing because the family is so large. And I remember one time a few years ago, I was at Thanksgiving and everyone was there eating, 30, 40, 50 people. I don't know how many people. And I turned to my grandma and I said, isn't it crazy that you made all of this? She looked at me knowingly like this and went, nodded sort of slyly, which is very, very funny. So I think on the family side, and my family members growing up were all very close, very good relationship. My parents and brothers, never don't have a sister, unfortunately, but I think it was a very nice. When I think about my childhood, I have good memories, and I can't think of many bad memories. The crazy thing is that I thought that was normal. But then when I grew up, when I became an adult, meeting people, having conversations, hearing other people's stories, what I heard was that my childhood was not normal. Not just because I was homeschooled and didn't have a TV, but in that so many people have trauma, abuse, parents who aren't there, just terrible things happen in their childhoods. And I feel it makes me so grateful for the nice, idyllic countryside childhood that I had. I have no complaints, almost no complaints growing up. But it amazed me growing up how common it is for the opposite to be true. That so many crazy things happen to people, and they still grow up and are responsible, which is amazing. But I'm certainly grateful. And as I think about the idea of having kids, I start to appreciate some of the decisions that my parents made with us as kids, particularly the TV thing. But I still have a lot to learn, a lot of reflecting to do. It also amazes me that a lot of people in my generation now, they are waiting a long time to have kids into their 30s. My parents started when they were in their early 20s, and that was very common. People having kids at age 23, 24, 25. That seems crazy to me. When I was 24, I was a complete idiot, just running around doing stupid things. I can't imagine being a parent when I was 24 years old. So I wonder what that's all about. If it just takes longer to mature in my generation, I don't know. Anyway, it's certainly interesting to reflect about. When I think about that sort of stuff, I feel very nostalgic, I think. Okay, we got some good questions here. Grace says, in my opinion, people just choose various reasons like religion, warring friendship, bad public school system, etc. Grace is making an interesting point here. For homeschooling, what's the reason? People choose a reason, right? Religion. And I think in my parents' case, it was a combination of religion and the public school system. They weren't crazy about the public school system. And also, I grew up in a very Christian household. Everyone in my family is still a very devout Christian, I would say. Devout may be the wrong word. Everyone in my family, my parents, my brothers, my whole extended family, they are all Christians, every single one of them. I'm the only one. I'm the only exception. I'm a nothing. But I'm thinking about starting my own religion someday. It's going to be based around learning English, of course. And I haven't decided, but the robes are going to be awesome. That's the only thing I know for sure. We're going to have some great robes, and it'll be basically similar to, of course, taking my courses will be a requirement. You can't get into the religion unless you take all of my courses first. And then you get your robe. Then I don't know what happens after that, but I'll figure it out. It's one of my life goals. Yep, I'm the black sheep for sure. But they don't treat me like, yeah, maybe they do. They don't understand. My whole family, and this is not, it's not their fault, right? Everyone in my family is they believe in seriously in Christianity, which is fine. I have no complaints with that. I think everyone should believe whatever they want. I think it's fantastic. But I think because they've said it, not all of them, but I think they think that I'm going through a confused phase, right, in my life where there's a period of time where I'm lost and confused. And someday, thankfully, someday I'll come back, right? Seems very unlikely to me. I think I'm more likely to become a I don't know, a Hindu or something. I think Hinduism is pretty cool. I like I would just get good vibes when I go into there's a Hindu temple near where I lived in Queens. Great vibes. If I were to choose on vibes alone, love a Hindu temple. Amazing food. That's the main thing. The Hindu temple in Queens is called the Temple of Ganesh. And in the basement, there's a cantina where they serve amazing dosas for very inexpensive, $5 or $6. Amazing dosas. So on that basis alone, if I had to pick one to be in, I think I might have to go with that. Just because of the dosas. Mahmood says how to use used to, and we just talked about used to. You missed that one. You'll have to go back and learn that one. We just talked about that on the blackboard, sir. Sorry about that. Nowadays, everyone is being a Hindu or Buddhist. Really? Well, I'm not too serious. I don't actually plan to join a particular religion, but I kind of like all religions. I'm interested in all religions. I like to read about religion. I like to study it. I like to think about it. I like to go to temples and services and read the books of the religions. I'm very, very interested in religion. But as for committing to one, that's another story. That's a tall order for me. Very tall order. How do you commit to one? You know, some people can do it, but for me, it was when so I'm just changing this thing. When what the heck? When I traveled, I got to meet people from around the world. And what I found was that everybody who believes something believes it very seriously, no matter which religion you're talking about, right? If someone is very serious about their faith or their belief, they're very sincere. And the sincerity, as you travel around, you realize it's the same feeling of sincerity. And so my takeaway from that was, well, maybe they're all true enough to be useful. They bring people together. They give people meaning and purpose and allow people to share culture, right, and experience something together, have a cultural identity. So how could I criticize that? But how could I pick one as well, right? Alejandro says, is it possible for you to create a vocabulary lesson? I mean, how to increase that thing? I mean, can you be a little more specific with that, Alejandro? Could you go into a little more detail with that question? I'd appreciate that. I'm just going to, hold on. I'm going to do one thing very quickly. Give me 1 second. Okay. I just want to add something because we're going to talk about some phrasal verbs in a second, and I want to get my blackboard straight. All right. You think you're quite repetitive when you speak. Okay. Well, the repetitive is partly vocabulary, but also being repetitive is about how you structure what you want to say as well. What I like to do when I'm speaking about something is build a little outline in my head, and then at least I know I'm moving through some specific points, right? If I know, for example, first I'm going to talk about, for example, when I was talking about childhood, I knew I was going to talk about normal stuff. I knew I was going to talk about friends. I knew I was going to talk about abnormal stuff, and then I knew I was going to talk about activities, and then I wanted to get into family. So that's a little outline that lives in my head as I'm speaking that kind of builds itself. I think the problem with repetition, if you feel like you keep circling back and saying the same thing over and over again, it's because you don't know where you're going. It's less about repeating the same words. Honestly, if you are a little repetitive with the words you use, it's usually okay. Yeah, great. Learn more vocabulary, learn more phrases. You should definitely do that. But when it comes to explaining something, describing something, telling a story, if you just have a little map in your head, a little outline of things that you're progressing through, then you're also mentally kind of checkboxing each point as you go. Okay, finish that, talked about that, talked about that. Then you're avoiding saying the same kinds of things, at least, and that's a lot better. So you have to separate those issues out. Is it a vocabulary phrase issue, or is it a structure issue? And I think the structure issue is actually a lot more common. But I don't know in your case, Alejandro. I am gonna be look out for the new course. So there's a course coming out in a couple days that is going to cover common English mistakes. It's about 5 hours long, and it covers a lot of common English mistakes. So check that out. I'll be posting about that quite shortly. I'll post the preview of the course on YouTube and Facebook, and then you'll see a link there if you want to get the course. It'll be launched with a special launch. Usually when I launch a course, I launch the course at the lowest price I can. That is allowed. There's a limit to how low you can put a price. I put the lowest possible price at launch, and then it usually goes higher. So launch is the best time to pick up a course for sure. This is insanely strong coffee. I put two double espressos in one cup. It's making my eyelids twitch, and just it's not good. All right. See if I missed any quick questions here before we move on. Mahmoud says, now I study at home with your lessons. Oh, thank you very much. What do you think of homeschooling children? Is it better than going to school? I think homeschooling can go well or very badly. So I've seen poor homeschooling. There's good homeschooling and bad homeschooling. Bad homeschooling can go very, very badly. It depends on the parents, I think. It really does. All right. Well, I want to get to... Yeah, we're going to... Marzouk, we're going to talk about some specific phrasal verbs that I want to associate with childhood. So we'll get to that, and we might get to some stories as well. And as I mentioned, if anyone has a crazy childhood story that's just amazing that they would like to share, let me know. Send me a message, and I can send you a link, and I would love to hear this story. Okay? You have to say it in English on the stream. All right? All right. Now, one thing that you often hear, a common thing that you hear in relation to children or siblings is something that I've always felt, which is middle child syndrome. Now, what is a syndrome? A syndrome is a condition. Sometimes it's a medical condition that could be negative, but syndrome is just a common condition related to psychology, related to mental health, related to sometimes your physical condition, right? And there's one called middle child syndrome, which I've always wondered is it real or is it just me? Because I've always felt a sense of middle child syndrome. But then I was reading an article recently that suggests it's not so clear that it really exists. So I grew up with two brothers. I had an older brother, 2 years older than me, and a younger brother, 4 years younger. Now, what happened was my older brother felt very responsible. He was like the third parent in a way. My parents put a lot of trust in him to make sure that his younger brother was following the rules, being a good boy, right? So that was me. So he was always very cautious and always making sure, are you doing the right thing? Did you do what mom and dad said, right? So I would say he was very obedient. And as a result, became kind of a, I don't know how else to say it other than kind of a mother hen. Mother hen is a behavior of being protective, right? We might call that a mother hen. Now, of course, how did I feel about this? That made me more rebellious, made me resentful, and wanting to break as many rules as I could. Because he's not a real parent, he's just being a mother hen. And I have to try to subvert his rules as often as possible, which led to some conflicts, of course. Okay, so there's then that, followed by, after 4 years of being the youngest child, and usually the youngest child gets the most attention, my little brother is born 4 years after me. And suddenly he's so cute and adorable and has blonde fluffy hair, and he's the cutest of the three. How did that make a growing boy feel, do you think? Of course, very jealous, right? Resentful of the authority of the older one, and now jealous of the younger one because I'm no longer the youngest and the cutest. And so I tortured him constantly. The thing that people always heard him say was "wook," like that, which is how a little kid would say my name, right? I did terrible things. The worst thing on record that I did was when he was maybe 2 years old. I went to the garden and I found the spiciest pepper I could find. Really, really hot pepper. I think it was a habanero. And I smiled and said, "Here I have brought you a treat." I gave him the pepper, and of course that did not end well. He ate it. He ate a big bite of it as a little 2-year-old, and then just started screaming and crying and turned as red as a tomato. And I ran away feeling great about myself. But I think later I was punished. So this feeling of being kind of stuck in the middle is called middle child syndrome. And I always thought that's got to be true. That's got to be a real thing, because I've heard about it, and it definitely resonates with me. Then I was reading an article about middle child syndrome, and it doesn't seem to be so clear. Okay, so here's the article. Birth Order and Personality, the Science Behind Middle Child Syndrome. Now, if you know, Adler is a well-known Alfred Adler is a well-known psychologist. He was a well-known psychologist, and he talked about this. 1964, Alfred Adler developed a theory on the importance of birth order on personality development. In his theory, he claims that although children may be born into the same household, their birth order greatly influences their psychological development. And that describes how I've always felt. If you're the middle child, you might be more even-tempered, but you might have trouble fitting in due to being sandwiched between the younger and older siblings. That is always exactly how I've felt as the middle child, especially as a child, right? And even-tempered, generally, I'm quite even-tempered as well. The youngest child is treated like a spoiled baby and can never rise above the older siblings. Absolutely. My parents were much more relaxed with my little brother. They didn't make him follow any rules. They were probably tired of parenting. They just said, do whatever you want. And then the oldest child, more authoritarian and feels all-powerful due to the high expectations often set by the parents. 100%. Absolutely. They placed their trust in him to be kind of the third parent. He became a mother hen, and that was a lot of pressure for him, but also something that I always kind of resisted. So this theory has been around, but is it true, right? They have these different aspects of personality here. Their personalities are often overshadowed by other siblings. In their relationships, they have trouble feeling equal to their siblings or parental relationships. In my case, not inferior, but superior. Rivalry, the middle child often feels need to compete with both younger and older siblings for parental attention. I think that was definitely true as a kid. And the middle children generally feel that they are the favorite child of the family. I didn't so much feel that I was the favorite child. I was not a black sheep, but just different from my siblings. How does it affect adults? It is believed that middle child syndrome can have a lasting impact on children as they grow into adults. If the characteristics listed above are true, being a middle child could cause a cascade of negative effects well into adulthood. Cascade means something following on because of some earlier thing. They may develop specific traits like they were neglected and may struggle with codependency in adult relationships, and they could find themselves continuing to be the peacemaker in adult life. Okay? The personality might be dulled in comparison to the personality of other adults around them. This I don't feel is true about me. I feel the opposite. I don't feel dependent. I don't feel like a peacemaker, and I don't think that my personality has been dulled in comparison to other adults around me. So that's the opposite. I don't know if that's true. Now, this article then goes on to say that's a theory that Adler developed and is a common idea, but if you actually study it and do surveys, this is a survey of 15,000 people, right? They studied 15,000 people. Their results, and I won't read this whole article, but their results show that it's not so conclusive, that there are anecdotal means just how someone feels, like me, my life experience and my feeling about being in the middle is anecdotal. It's not based on data. It's not looking at 15,000 people. It's more anecdotal than true statistically. Middle child syndrome is a popular term used to describe how being a middle child shapes one's personality and outlook in life. Some people believe that middle child syndrome, that middle children are often ignored and neglected, which can have negative effects going into adulthood. While some research suggests that there may be some influence on personality from birth order, the results are contradictory and more research is needed. Ultimately, personality and life outcomes are defined by a variety of social, financial and familial influences, but not necessarily by birth order. So the science is surveys are much less clear than the anecdotal stories about middle child syndrome, it seems. And that doesn't mean it's absolutely not true, but based on the research that has been done, it's very hard to find what's called a correlation. Correlation is a relationship between two things. For example, a relationship between birth order and personality. According to this, it's not so easy to find a correlation between which order you are among your siblings and your personality, especially later in life. So I think that's interesting. We get these common ideas, and it makes me wonder if possibly we shape our... It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We shape our personalities or how we think about our personalities based on what we hear about, like theories of middle child syndrome, making me think, well, maybe I have that. And then because I think I have that, or I think I experienced that, I then tell the stories of my childhood memories to fit that because I think I am that. So I wonder. It's interesting. And I think also sometimes statistics and surveys can't quite get at the on-the-ground truth of someone's real lived experience. So I'm not really sure where to go with that. It's kind of inconclusive, but I still find it interesting. And when I think about my childhood, I really do think that I had that classical middle child syndrome. I'm one of 3 siblings, too. I'm the oldest. I felt the same as your older brother. My parents, this is from Josie, my parents at the time expected too much of me. Now, Josie, I'm wondering, for this, as the oldest child, did that cause you to be... I don't want to overshare on personal details here, but that pressure for my older brother eventually proved to be too much. I think he felt so much pressure that eventually he just said, forget about this whole thing. And he kind of flipped around and became the opposite of really responsible and always following the rules. Now he doesn't care about any rules. He completely went the other way as he matured. And I'm curious how that affects you, if you feel that affects you as an adult. Marzuk says, what YouTube channels do you recommend for learning English? I don't know any. I'm the only one I know of. Of course, I've heard of ones. Everyone on my live streams always says Bob the Canadian, Bob the Canadian. I don't know much about Bob the Canadian, but I'm sure that's great. So check that dude out, I guess. I don't know. Why am I recommending others? Watch mine. I've got like 500 videos. Watch my videos. The end of the day, if you are the oldest brother or the last, in your case, you'll develop a personality disorder. The psychologist won the lotto. What do you mean by that one? Interesting. The reason I decided to only have 2 children. Well, I wonder. Yeah, I'm interested in all of it. If you have 1 child or 2, or 1 child, so my wife is an only child. My wife is Chinese, which is a very common thing in her generation because they had the 1-child policy, as I'm sure you've probably heard of. But that's a whole thing too. If you're the only child, it's called being an only child. Instead of I was of 1 children, we say I was an only child. If you're an only child, that probably comes with its own things too. Like how do you develop social skills if you don't have anyone right around you to talk to and play with, and it's only kids at school? Does that affect you? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But one interesting thing for the 1-child policy in China is, so okay, you imagine this. You're 1 child. You marry You're from China, okay? You're one child. In the same generation, you marry someone who's also an only child. So you have two only children. Each of you have, let's say, two parents. So there are now four parents involved in the relationship, as there are when any two kids get married. But then the one-child policy gets changed, adjusted. You can have two, you can have three kids if you want. So let's say you have two. Now, the prices of things are going up, the lifestyle, the cost of living is increasing rapidly. And let's say you both work. Your parents are getting older. Now, in Chinese culture, you're expected to have the concept of filial piety, right? It's a Confucian idea, concept of filial piety. You're expected to take care of your parents. So now you have two sets of parents to take care of. Like in my case, for example, well, so do I, but I also have two brothers, and they live closer to my mom, for example. So, there's the responsibility is kind of distributed. Whereas if you're the only child, you're the only one responsible. So you have a lot of pressure on you. You have to be the one who succeeds. For school, you have to be the one to get the best grades because we don't have three to choose from. All right, the oldest one didn't do well in school. Maybe number two will do well. Let's see how that goes, right? The pressure is distributed. As an only child, it's focused on this one person. Then financially, you might be taking care of both kids and parents at the same time, right? Not just one set of parents, but two sets of parents as they age. Maybe that means taking care of them at home. Maybe that means taking care of them in a nursing home, right? For example, as they get older. So it's just a lot of pressure on that generation specifically. And it's a very interesting phenomenon for sure. But I think it's more and more common for people to choose to have less children rather than more. Like Karina says, only two. I think two is a pretty good number. You still feel pressure on your shoulders. You're always worried about things, Josie. Josie is an extremely responsible person. Well, is what it is. Mazook says, when I was a teenager, I didn't get along with my parents. Are there any phrases to talk about that? I'm sure there are, such as, we didn't get along. You could also say, we often butted heads. You know how two goats with horns will hit their heads together as a sort of, what is that, a territorial dispute among goats? Goat territorial disputes. Well, the same thing goes for disputes with parents or among siblings, right? So we can use the same phrase to butt heads. That's what goats do. They butt heads. You could say, growing up, I often butted heads with my parents because, and then you can explain the story. That would be a good way to say it. Now, if it's a relationship thing and you're just not very close, some people would describe a family as very close-knit. Knit, K-N-I-T. Close-knit. K-N-I-T, like knitting, right? If you knit something very close, like a sweater, the fibers are very tight together. If you're very close-knit, you always stay in touch. You always talk on the phone, even as an adult, right? Always getting together. For example, my cousins are very close-knit. They always hang out together. My mother and her family, or my extended family, especially her sister and the wives of her brothers, my uncle's wives. Okay, yeah, my uncle's wives. They're very close-knit. They're always doing things together, activities, hanging out, going shopping. They're very close-knit. Some people are not. Some people have a farther relationship. We could say not very close-knit. It doesn't mean you don't get along. It just means the relationship is not as close. So butt heads, close-knit, they're a little different. One is about disagreeing and fighting and not seeing eye to eye. The other is about the closeness of the relationship. Seeing eye to eye, by the way, is another thing, but that's more like sharing values, sharing principles. We have the same values, we have the same principles. We see eye to eye on this. I'll tell you my biggest fear. I want to get into parenting styles. We're going to watch a video. Pundit, if you want to, you have a really interesting story to share. If so, you want to share it on stream? You want to get on stream and share? That'd be fine. So we're gonna watch a video about parenting styles, but what was I gonna say before that? Before I got distracted, I lost my train of thought. Crap. All right, whatever. Oh, I remember what it was. Probably my greatest fear about the idea of being a parent is something that I experience with my cats. So I have 2 cats, and they're brother and sister. They were born in the same litter from China, brought them back to the United States. They're two very cute American short hairs. When people come over, they say, "Oh, your cats, they're so beautiful, they're so cute." And they are. That's true. But I've sort of seen those 2 cats as a proxy. Proxy means not the real thing, but as a way to see what the real thing would be like, as a proxy of being a parent. And I may have shared this before, but I just want to share it because I'm on the topic. One of them is great. His name is Circle. He's so cute, so friendly. He has a very high EQ. If he can see you're not in the mood to pet him, he'll be cool. He'll step back. He'll do his own thing. If he can see that you might be in the mood to pet him, he'll come over to you and ask for a pet. He just has a very high EQ. He's very cool, right? I have another cat who is his sister named Doorbell, and she does not have a high EQ. She will kind of force herself on you when she wants to be pet, whether you like it or not, and kind of knocks a lot of things over. It just generally does stuff that you don't want her to do. The opposite. If you think, "Please don't knock that over," she'll knock it over. "Please don't come over here. I'm not in the mood to pet you." She'll come over and to force you to, right? So generally speaking, I kind of really like one cat, and I don't, not as much like the other one, okay? My fear is, let's say I have 2 kids. What if it's the same? What if one of them is really cool and one of them is not? How do I deal with that? There are famous examples in movies. Thanos, if you watch Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, Thanos has 2 daughters. They're not his real daughters. One of them, Gamora, that's the green one, and the other one, Nebula, that's the one that he replaces many of her body parts with machine parts. Essentially, it's a science project. He kind of hates one of them and loves the other. It's his favorite daughter versus the daughter that he kind of just, I'll just do experiments on you, right? He feels differently about his 2 kids. Then there's the example of Theoden. Is that right? No, not Theoden. Who's the steward of Gondor in Lord of the Rings? Steward of Gondor. Anyway, whatever his name is, Theoden's the guy from Rohan. So if you ever watched Lord of the Rings, it's the guy who's the steward who has the 2 sons, Boromir and Faramir. And just like that, in his case, he hates one and loves the other. Boromir dies. Faramir lives. And because of that, he hates Faramir even more. And in the third Lord of the Rings movie, he sends him into a hopeless situation where he will definitely die. He doesn't die, but he has this feeling of, this one is great and this one I hate. My terror is that because I feel differently about these two cats, this one's great, this one's not so great, I'm terrified that what if just naturally my favorite daughter and the daughter I don't like so much, or my favorite son and the son I don't like so much, what do I do in that situation? Do I have to hide it? How do I make sure it's fair? I'm terrified of this situation. I don't know what it means psychologically, but this is something that I think about way more than I should. And I try to treat the two cats fairly as a sort of practice for this possibility. I don't even know if it's possible or not. People say you always love your kids, so I hope that's true. But it's still, the possibility is still pretty terrifying. Not Gandalf. Not Gandalf. Alejandro says, don't let fear block you from raising children. Of course, yeah. Of course. You're right. But it's still a fear in the back of my mind. Okay, Pandit, if you want to share, let's see here. I'm going to share a link. And if you want to share your story, I'll pop this into the chat. No pressure, but I hope it's interesting. Okay, I'll pump that into the chat. If you only click this link if you're prepared to be on stream, all right? Fair warning. Fair warning. Okay. Let's see what happens there. Let's watch a video. Parenting styles. And if you do join that, make sure you open it in Google Chrome. It doesn't work in any other browser. You have to open it in Google Chrome. All right? And if I don't answer right away, it's because I want to watch this video. So apparently there are different parenting styles. And I didn't know the names of these, but I don't think it's as simple as a parent is only one way. I want to spend a little time looking through a video about parenting styles. There are apparently 4 main ones, and the video that I found actually has 5. So I'd like to take a look at that. Hold on, Pundit is joining, so let me add him quickly, and then we'll watch the video. Hey, Pundit? Is it Pandit or Pundit? How do I say your name correctly?
It's Pandit. It's not actually my name, but it's like nickname.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
My name is Rome.
Rome? How do you spell that?
R-O-M, Rome.
Oh, R-O-A-M, Rome. Okay, cool. All right, so
R-O-M.
Oh, R-O-M. Oh, okay, Rom. Okay. That is the name of a character from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Oh, you know the character?
I know, but I have not watched Star Trek. But
Okay.
About him.
Okay, yeah, he's a good character. All right, so Ram. Can I call you Ram or should I call you? Is Ram good?
I would prefer Pandit.
Okay, Pandit. So you have a story about an interesting childhood story you want to share?
Yeah, I'm like little nervous.
Don't be nervous. I'm always nervous, so you know. It's all good.
I was in grade 4 or 5 or something like that, and I was
Okay.
very naughty child to say. Uh, I was to ruin everything. And one day I was
You're wait. Were you famous for being naughty? Was it just in school or also at home? You were very
both,
naughty.
both, both. But I was
Let
good
me
at
let me
study.
get a little more background information first. Do you have siblings, brothers, sisters?
I have like two sisters.
Two, three,
Also,
two or three?
I'm the middle one, and I had one younger and one older sister.
Okay, you have an
Like
older and
middle
younger. So
child.
you're a middle child. Okay,
I too
and
had middle child syndrome.
you also had middle child, even with sisters. Okay, all right, cool.
Uh,
Um, and what about where do you live?
I live in Nepal, like it's between
In
Tibet and
Nepal.
India.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yep. Yeah, I know Nepal. I've been there
So
a couple times.
I hope
Okay.
I hope I hope you enjoyed here.
Yeah, I liked it. It was great. You know what? I decided to get married in Nepal. I was in
Really,
Nepal when I decided to get married. Yeah, yeah.
in Kathmandu or Pokhara or
Yeah, I
something.
was in Kathmandu. Yeah.
Oh, nice, amazing.
Okay. All right. So you've got. Okay. Now I know a little bit of background about you. Now let's. You were naughty. Okay, you're a naughty kid, bad kid. So yeah, I'm
Uh,
curious.
and I was originally born in a hilly village in Nepal. Like it's just below the mountains. Like this very cold place, and I used to do a lot of naughty things. Like I used to take fire and go to like field and burn it down like
Just a
that.
ball field.
And
What
once,
was it like a field of growing crops or a dead
no, no,
field?
no, it was just grassland, like
Oh,
old
okay.
grassland.
Even though that's not as bad, if you had burned down crops, that would have been really serious. But even though
No,
it's
no,
not as bad, burning down a whole field could start a major fire. That could start a terrible fire.
yeah, it won't start. Like my house was just above the place where I burned down. Like it was very grassy there, and there was some insect, and I tried to burn them with fire, and it started firing
So
the
okay, so
whole place.
you weren't trying to burn the entire field. You were trying to kill
I
some
was playing.
bugs.
I was just trying to play with fire, like
Right, right,
just
right.
trying to kill some house of bugs. It was like a group of bugs playing around there, and I was trying to kill them with fire.
So you so in addition to being a bad kid, you also tortured insects.
No, I was just a kid and innocent.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so is that the worst?
And it nearly caught fire in my house, and like it even started fire to the nearby, like how it was not our field, but it was another person's field, and it also caught in fire. And she was very mad with our family. Like she
Of course.
scolded she scolded even me and even my parents, like, why letting your child to play with fire like that.
Did you get how serious was the damage? Did it just burn down those two fields?
It started just like, uh, there are steeps in Nepal, like in hill there are many steeps, and it nearly
Oh, right,
burned
right.
one, and it burned one cliff like that, and it went into another person's cliff, and
Got
she
it.
was very mad at us. And when people came and put it down, the fire was put it down, but many people came and everyone was looking at me, and even after a week, the whole cliff looked very black after the burning down, and everyone used to look at me, and I used to feel like embarrassed.
So it's not that you did that, but after that, the entire town knew that it was you, and when they saw you, they thought, "There's the kid who burned the field."
Yeah, I was to just live in front of my house, like playing there, and everyone used to walk by the. It was near the road, like everyone used
Yeah.
to walk by the road, and they used to look at me like every time they walked through the road. They used to like look at me with very deep eyes. I turn and run away.
Did you receive any punishment from your parents or anyone? Did you get punished in any way?
In evening time, I was like scolded for about half an hour.
Oh, that's not bad.
Like both fathers and mother and even my grandparents came to me, and everyone was talking to me very like scolding me. Whole family and even neighbors also came to scold me.
So the
Just
whole town came to yell at you. But I mean,
none.
30
It was just
dealing
uncle.
dealing with 30
Uncle.
minutes of scolding is not that bad, honestly. That you didn't get beat, no, nobody beat you, nobody said you couldn't eat dinner for a month or anything like that. No real
No, no. My
punishment.
my parents were like very loose. That's why I was
Yeah.
so naughty. They used to let me do anything like that.
Go outside, play with fire, leave me alone.
My
All right.
father
Well,
used
thank
to.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, did you
My,
did you so you said you also have middle child syndrome a little bit. Um as I mentioned earlier, I really enjoyed torturing my little brother. Did you do any of that? Because I was a little naughty too. I'm curious if you did any of that with your little sister.
my elder sister was not so talented, but my younger sister was very studious. She was like top in every class, and I
Uh
was
huh.
just average student. And they used to look at her and like look at her sister. She's very smart. She's like very she gets very good marks. What are you doing? Go study. And I used to be very jealous, and I used to keep her note or like put ink in her notebooks like that and ruin her notebook.
That's
And
pretty good.
before the exam day like that. And my sister was as good as me, so I was not so bad with her. Like she and I were the best ones, but the little ones and I was in very bad relation like that, very bad relation.
Good story. That's interesting that it seems like middle child syndrome exists across cultures. At least we've established it can happen in Nepal and the United States. Great. And whether your siblings are sisters or brothers, because in my case it's brothers and yours sisters. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, Pandit. I appreciate
thank,
it.
thank you for letting me. I
Absolutely.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. That's a good one. If anyone else has that was a good story. I admit burning down an entire field is pretty extreme. I don't think I ever did anything that bad. It would be worse though if that whole field had been wheat or corn or something that you would actually need to harvest or something valuable. It sounded like it was just dead grass. So that's not so serious, but still, that's a good one. If anyone else has any interesting childhood stories they'd like to share, I'm all ears. In the meantime, let's talk about parenting styles. So as I was saying, there are apparently 4 styles of parenting, and I want to go through a few of them and see if they're universally true or if maybe it's a mix. I think it's probably generally a mix of them. I don't know if any parents represent only one exclusively, but it is still interesting. Think about what style of parents you had, and if these 4, actually 5 categories, how well these 4 or 5 categories fit. I say 4 or 5 because it's actually traditionally 4, but in this video apparently it's 5. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so let's hop over here. This is 5 parenting styles and their effects on life. All right. Where's my sound? Oh, it's not playing. That's why. Hey, why won't it play?
There are no rules. Authoritative parents are
What?
firm but loving.
Don't tell me this is happening again. A long time ago, there was this issue with videos not playing, and the issue was that the video wouldn't play with sound. I have a solution though. It'll just take me a minute to get through it. It's just some stupid sound thing with my computer. I think it happens if I do interview someone and then it messes up the sound because it thinks it's interview sound or something. I don't know, but
encourage independence
we go.
within limits. In their own child. Recently, a fifth style.
Okay, can you guys hear that? Is that working? Oh, come on.
The styles range from controlling and demanding to complete freedom, and from cold and unresponsive to loving and receptive. Each, authoritative, permissive, authoritarian, and neglectful parents have their place. To understand.
Okay, let's pay attention to a couple things here. This is, I find, very interesting. So, on the authoritative, do you think it's an accident that that is an Asian mom? Definitely not.
Permissive parents are loving, but
So authoritative is an Asian mom, and some might say, whoa, 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 stereotype. And you could say, yes, the stereotype. But I've met a lot of, let's say, I've met a lot of Chinese moms. I've had the opportunity. Some are very relaxed. Of course, it's no stereotype is totally true. But the stereotype of the tiger mom is common. I gotta say it's common in China, of a strict mom who's really demanding of her son or daughter, especially. I've experienced a lot of it firsthand.
don't exert any control. There are no rules. Authoritative parents.
I think they're trying to evoke with this one. I think they're trying to evoke the hippie thing. Hippies from the 70s, it's kind of hippie style. I don't know if that works, but okay. Yeah, hippies are kind of peace and love, relaxed about everything.
Parents are firm but loving. They
Okay, so authoritative.
encourage independence.
Is that what they said? Wait. So what's the first one? Okay, sorry, I gotta review this.
In theory, there are only 4 styles of parenting. Authoritarian parents are controlling and demand obedience
Okay, so the first one is authoritarian, like a dictator.
without considering the child's point of view. Permissive parents are loving
Okay.
but don't exert any control. There are no rules. Authoritative parents are firm but loving. They
Authoritative.
encourage independence within limits. Neglecting parents are uninvolved and often uninterested in their own child. Recently,
Neglect means to not pay enough attention to something. You neglect something. You don't pay attention to it. Like if you neglect your plants, they're gonna die. I don't know if I can read any more into the things that they've chosen to draw here, but let's proceed.
a 5th style was proposed, but we will come back to that later. The styles range from controlling and demanding to complete freedom, and from cold and unresponsive to loving and receptive. Each, authoritative, permissive, authoritarian, and neglectful parents have their place. To understand what it means.
Who are they to say they have their place? What does that mean? They have their place. Does that mean sometimes we should be one or the other? Always? I don't know what that means.
To grow.
Also, why are they using a snowflake? Oh, I see. This is warm and this is cold. The snowflake is cold. The lock means this is open and this is closed. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what that means.
Grow up with parents from each end of the spectrum, we can imagine the lives of 4 children. Sarah's parents are authoritarian. They love their girl, but they believe that strict rules are important to make Sarah become well-behaved and fit into society. If Sarah cries, she's told to stop. If she talks back, she is sent to the corner for time out. If she forgets to take care of her chores around the house, she is not allowed to play with her toys.
Oh, that's such a cold look right there from the mom. Ooh, that's cold. That's very cold. So this is high level of discipline, order, no no ability to go. They use talk back. Talk back means, you tell your kids something and then they say, I don't want to. That's talking back. Are you talking back to me? Don't talk back to me, right? That would be an authoritarian parent.
Sarah learns that suppressing her emotions and following her duties is the way to get through the day. To get the love of her parents and to avoid making them upset, she becomes obedient. However, because Sarah was never allowed to decide for herself or follow her intrinsic interests, as an adult, she doesn't know what she really wants. She begins living a life that seems perfect to her parents and society, but might leave her unhappy on the inside.
All right, what's the pro?
Permissive parent.
Whoa, are we only doing the negatives now? They didn't mention the pro, did they? The con is that you just follow rules and then you don't know who you are when you grow up. Surely there's a good point, right? I mean, well, seems like that's a little one-sided, eh?
Parents, like those of Peter, enjoy their little boys so much that they believe they should fulfill all his wishes, give him full freedom, and never
Cake,
say no.
cupcakes, toys.
Peter enjoys full control over his parents and gets whatever he wants. If he doesn't want to walk, he'll be carried. If he wants ice cream he gets. If he wants to play games, he'll be playing them all night.
I've seen, though, an interesting mix of permissive and authoritative, where a parent will be really, really strict when it comes to school only education. So if it's studying, if it's exam scores, if it's notes from the teacher, if it's getting homework done, extreme strictness, you must follow the rules. But then if it's anything else, if it's chores, if it's wanting ice cream or wanting a toy or something, then that same parent will also provide anything they want. So they're very strict in one category exclusively, but then any other category. So it's like permissive in all categories except for education. And then where education is concerned, authoritative. Authoritarian, not authoritative, authoritarian.
Peter grows up completely without borders and does whatever he thinks is right.
No discipline,
He
right?
never coped with conflict, and he did not learn.
Cope means deal with. He never had to deal with conflict. He's used to getting his way all the time. This person we would describe as spoiled, probably. Oh, so spoiled. You always get what you want. You never have to think about how to get it, or working hard, or discipline, self-control. You just eat cookies and watch videos on a computer monitor that's not plugged in and yell at classmates.
Learn to control his emotions. The fact that he always got what he wanted made him a bad loser. As he grows older, he often acts inconsiderate and doesn't know his limits. Arthur's authoritative parents respect their child's needs.
I wonder if they're going to show the... So we have the... Okay. I guess we'll get hopefully to the pros and cons. It seems like it's only giving the negative aspects of each of these. So permissive, you grow up and you're spoiled and you don't know how to work with others. Authoritarian, you grow up and you don't know who you are, but you're very well disciplined. What? I feel like they need to mention the pros as well.
But believe that kids need freedom within certain limits. Arthur can freely play, but when he's done, he needs to help tidy up. He is allowed to eat ice cream, but only on Sundays. Screen time is limited to 30 minutes a day.
Seems like a good
There may
mix.
be conflict, but the parents listen to what Arthur has to say and then lay down the rules.
Seems like a pretty good balance.
Arthur learns that some things are difficult, but his parents give him all the support he needs to get through it.
I think they're trying to say the first two are too extreme, And maybe this one is a good happy medium between the two guidelines. I wonder if they're trying to push this specific parenting approach.
He develops the strength to endure hardships and to continue following his interests and passions. In class, he bravely expresses his own opinions in an appropriate manner. During breaks, he can show his emotions and act freely. As an adult, he
Sounds pretty
agrees to
good.
rules only after they have been discussed and he feels like he understands them.
But
Neglectful parents are
no, but that seems like the winner. I think they're trying to say that one's the best so far.
usually not present in their children's life. Nora often feels completely alone in the world. She experiences full freedom to do anything she wants to and has plenty of imagination,
Sounds pretty
but she
good.
never receives any feedback or even attention.
Oh, her dad is on the phone a lot. What's her mom doing there? Is she writing notes? She writing down what her dad is saying on the phone? Basically neglectful. If you neglect something, you just don't pay attention to it. And that could be for your home, it could be for your children, it could be for your body, it could be for your habits, neglecting something, not paying attention to it. And then affection is showing love. They mentioned before being present. To be present is to be there. So if you're a present parent, it means that you are emotionally available to your children. You're willing to give them time. You're willing to connect with them and listen to them. If you're not present or never present, maybe you're physically there, but you're not emotionally there. You're not listening to them. You're not concerned about their needs. You're not present. That's what you say. You're never present. Someone is always on their phone, always looking at their phone and never paying attention to the situation or the conversation. Say, you're just never present. Even though you're always here, you're never present.
Nora realizes that it doesn't matter what she does because no one cares anyway. The lack of attention leads to a lack of trust in herself and others. She becomes insecurely attached, unable to. Doesn't matter what she does because no one cares anyway.
Hey, wait. Oh, the video stopped working. Give me a second. The heck?
Leads to a lack of trust in herself and cares anyway. The lack of attention to a lack of trust.
Why?
She becomes insecurely attached,
Able to form healthy relationships and develops a negative of love. She tries not to feel anything at all. In recent
Unworthy.
years, over-involved parents who are present in every aspect of their child's life are often referred to as the fifth style. These parents are also known as snowplows, removing obstacles out of their kids' path, or
Snowplows,
helicopter parents who
I haven't heard snowplows before, but I often hear helicopter parents. I've seen parents who they'll just sit by their child and wait for them to do something. And then as soon as their child does this, they'll react. And their entire life is about their kids. That which is, I think, abnormal in history until very recently. The concept of the helicopter parent is, I think, probably out of some need to feel like maybe because people are having fewer children, especially one child, only children, you need to make sure everything goes right for your kid. And so you remove all difficulty to make sure their life is smooth. I think what they're going to say is there's an irony, and the irony is my opinion, if you get rid of all obstacles and you are constantly focused on them, they'd never develop their own personality and they're always, as soon as they have any problems, they look to their parents. Help me, help. They never really think by themselves. How do I solve this? How do I fix
who
this?
hover about and micromanage every aspect of their
Micromanage,
child's
yes,
life.
good word to use.
Since they won't let their children do anything alone, the children can't learn to overcome challenges by themselves. Research infers that these children don't like to solve difficult problems, lack perseverance, and may even procrastinate in protest when something requires a
Procrastinate means to delay. Say, I'll do it later. I don't want to do it now.
lot of effort. Since most research on parenting is based on
Stop
self-reports and was done in the US and Europe, it is not clear how strongly the observed effects will hold up in controlled observational experiments or in other parts of the world. The 4 parenting styles were first introduced by psychologist Diana Baumrind. For good parenting, she advised balance of demandingness and responsiveness. Add to that the wise words of Maria Montessori to never help a child with a task at which he feels he can succeed, and parents should do pretty well.
That's an interesting one. So the Montessori teaching method is a very popular kind of pedagogical system for educating children, and there have been a lot of famous people who were educated in the Montessori style, like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google. And it's the idea that, number one, that you do follow the interests of the child, but it can still be directed. And so if they're excited about it, they're going to work harder at it. And as they just said, if you see them doing a task, don't do the task for them. Instead, give them the chance to do it, because then they can learn a valuable skill. Then they can learn to do something well, solve a problem, think for themselves, right? Makes sense to me.
What do you think? Should parents resort to a specific style, or should they decide what's best to do in a given situation?
I think it's pretty clear that nobody is specifically only one style. Maybe helicopter parents are, but I think having limits is good for kids, because otherwise they'll just do whatever they feel like doing, and then allowing them to accomplish tasks themselves is good. So I think approach number 3 is probably a good one, which is authoritative, not authoritarian. That mixed with Montessori seems like a good one to me. Pretty interesting. I don't know how much credit to give it, though, because as they said, those sorts of things are studied in settings, artificial settings, or maybe done by survey. So what do people report about themselves in a survey? Are they going to be completely honest? Who knows? Also, if you look at someone in a specific setting, like a clinical setting, are you going to see the real thing, real behavior? So it's hard to know if you get to see the real thing when you're studying it. The real thing happens when you're not studying it. And then when you ask someone to say what they did because you weren't studying it, they might not report it exactly because they're biased, or they're not proud of something, or they have their own view about how they do things, which may not be the reality. I think that's what's interesting about this sort of thing. It's hard to say, so you have to paint with a broad brush, do broad descriptions, and then you can try to figure out your own picture from those broad descriptions. I'm curious, though, if you have experiences as a parent or as a kid growing up with these styles, and if so, was it a mix? Was it one? Was it the other? Let me know. I'm quite curious. Okay, no delay. Oh, okay, that was about the interview. Yeah, so I'm curious if people have an experience of either being a parent, that's one way or the other, or grew up in one style, that's one way or the other. Speaking of growing up, we're gonna talk about some phrasal verbs related to growing up on our theme of childhood today. Okay, so let's hop into that. Ooh, hold on. Let me update one thing very quickly before we do that. Give me 1 second, if that's okay. Okay. Yes, grow out of Okay, I'm just doing a title to make sure that everything's clear. Okay. I'm sure you're probably aware of phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are so common in the English language that it would be impossible to just start with a list and say, let's talk about phrasal verbs. So typically what I like to do is focus them around a topic. In this case, something related to growing up, childhood, being a kid, right, or parenting. So we're going to look at 3 specific phrasal verbs related to being a child and parenting, okay? Now, the weird thing about phrasal verbs is that they have multiple meanings. They don't only have one meaning, and that's what makes them kind of complicated. So when you learn phrasal verbs, make sure you're learning the different meanings that they have, and also be sure to learn by example so that you can get a feeling for them, so that you can learn how to use them naturally. Now we're going to start with grow up, right? And I'm sure that you've heard it before, and the standard meaning is to sort of go from being small to being big, right? So if you looked at a plant, you might say the plant is growing up, right? It's getting bigger and becomes a large plant. So it's growing up. All right. I don't know what's going on there with my plant. But specifically about being a kid, right? You hear phrases about going from being a baby to an adult, and you could say that is growing up. When we talk about a general period in our lives, when we were kids, not yet adults, we say, when I was growing up, when I was growing up. It's a broad description to talk about generally childhood and being a teen, those years. You're talking about an era in your life, a period of time in your life, right? But there are some common phrases related to this that people use that you'll often hear. And one of the most common is when I grow up. That doesn't mean the period of time when you are growing up. That means when you're done, when the cookies are baked, when you're an adult. And often people talk about potential careers in this way. They'll say, when I grow up, I'd like to be an astronaut. When I grow up, I want to be an architect. Or what do you want to be when you grow up? Parents will often ask their kids that, or adults will ask children that. What do you want to be when you grow up? So it's a common phrase. But this phrasal verb can be used in a lot of different ways. This is more of a physical meaning, or maybe this era or this period of time in your life. This is a common phrase about being done with that period of time and something that will happen or maybe won't happen when that happens. But then there's something about maturity that we talk about with this phrasal verb. Maturity is your ability to handle the world. It's an emotional condition. It's what happens often when people do grow up. So sometimes when you hear someone say just this by itself, grow up, it means you're being immature. Now you could say this to a 55-year-old if they're being immature, right? If someone is behaving in a way that a child would behave, you feel like they're not behaving in a mature way, then you can say, will you just grow up? You're being so childish. Let's say, for example, somebody wants to buy something that they can't afford, right? Husband and a wife. Husband wants to buy a boat, but they can't afford it. And the husband says, I want a boat. Well, we can't afford it. It's not in our budget. I'm going to get it. Well, we have to go in debt to get it. I want it anyway. Will you grow up? Let's save up a few years, then maybe we can afford to buy it, right? Maybe this lady thinks that her husband is being childish for saying, I want this thing right now. I want a boat right now. Doesn't matter what age then. It's more of the emotional aspect of it. That's what it's really about. And often we're telling someone to do that, right? You need to grow up and stop living in a fantasy. Someone is living in their head. They're not living in the real world. You need to grow up. Again, it's not about your actual age. Sometimes, though, you'll see things like arising, and you'll see things like beginning and then increasing in number, and that being associated with the phrasal verb grow up. So something like local communities have grown up over the years. So they began with 2 or 3 people, and then more people got involved, and maybe it's about farming, or it's about doing black magic, whatever it is. A small group of people has got together. They have started doing something together, and they're local. They live close together, and the community has grown up. That doesn't mean the community has become more mature. It means that it began in a small way and has grown, gotten bigger over time. So that meaning is less common, but you will see that one too. Okay, so that's typically how we use grow up. A grown-up would be an adult. Look at all those grown-ups. Often as a kid, you would describe adults as grown-ups instead of being an adult. Those adults, the grown-ups, the grown-up table. Oh, I feel so grown up. So that could be either a noun or an adjective. What about, and let's actually go over one that's got the same word in it, but is in fact different. Let's talk about grow out of. Now, this kind of breaks the rules of typical phrasal verbs, but let's just say grow out, and then we often add of something after it. Now, you might know the basic meaning. To grow out of something is something that fit you before, but now it doesn't because of something that happened. But that could be used in different ways. Well, a simple example would be clothes. When this is true, by the way, about me, older brother grew out of his clothes, I would get them. What does that mean? Well, that means he's actually growing physically. And I'm also doing that, but I'm younger, so I will fit his old clothes when he's done. He has now new clothes. This is something that always bothered me as a kid, because it makes sense to say, well, now you're big enough to wear your older brother's clothes. Why don't you wear them? I would just have to say, yeah, okay, I guess. I didn't get new clothes as often as my big brother because he was the oldest, so he got the newer clothes most often, and I was often wearing his old clothes because he grew out of them. So think about it physically. You're in a shirt, okay? Here you are in this. It was actually not a bad shirt there. Great job. Great job, Luke. Tiny head. And then you get bigger, and your body is now growing physically. What the heck? Growing out of it. It's just too small. Okay, so you grew out of that. And that's a typical way we describe that. We also talk about these types of clothes as hand-me-downs. Hand-me-down clothes. And you often see this written with hyphens between them. Hand-me-down clothes. Okay, I'm wearing hand-me-downs. Now, we also use this for non-physical things. We talked about maturity, right? Becoming more mature. Well, think about the different phases of your life. Was there a period of time where you liked this as a 13 and 14-year-old, but then as a 15 and 16-year-old, you didn't like it anymore. In the same way that you would grow out of a shirt because you get bigger, you might grow out of a fad or a trend or something that you were into for a period of time. So, or maybe not, right? For example, we might say something like, he never really grew out of Pokemon. Oh, the R. Never really grew out of Pokemon. What does that mean? Well, he got into Pokemon as a 10-year-old. He loved Pokemon as a 10-year-old, trading the cards, right? Playing Pokemon on Game Boy Color. But then, as he got older, he never really stopped being into that. A lot of the time when you are 10, you like things, and then as you get older, you grow out of those things, and you like other things. In this case, he never grew out of Pokemon. That means he's 35 years old, and he still loves Pokemon. Now, maybe that's because Pokemon is now you could run a business trading Pokemon cards, or you can play games like Pokemon Go, and that's can be for adults, right? Maybe that's why. Or maybe this person just has found a reason to always love Pokemon. This could be a negative thing or not, right? It could be that you're immature and you haven't grown out of this thing that's for kids. What's wrong with you? Or it could be just a nice little thing. Oh, you still like that. That's great. So I'm not saying if this is positive or negative. It's just a way to describe that thing that started as a kid. And then we could say something, let's say this lesson, for example. This lesson grew out of, I'm just going to put this over here, grew out of a question that a student asked me about this phrasal verb. So I thought about these phrasal verbs associated with childhood and growing up because I had a conversation about this topic with someone, and it made me think, I could do a lesson about that. I could use those phrasal verbs to connect that to that topic, and that kind of grew out of that conversation. So the conversation is a smaller thing, almost like the conversation is the seed, and then this thing grows out of that seed. So when you say out of, you're saying that the source, you're talking about the source or where it came from, the idea often, or the concept of something might come out of a seed that is the inspiration for that thing, okay? Now we have one more very quickly to talk about, and that is bring up. Now, I'm sure you've heard bring up before. It's used in a lot of different ways. How is it connected to kids? I don't get it. Well, one basic meaning of bring up is to carry something from down to up, right? So here's a building, and this is the 15th floor, and somebody starts down here with a bag full of celery, and they go into the building, and they go up the elevator, and now they're on the 15th floor. They have brought the celery up. Yeah, bring it up. Can you bring up the pizza? Thank you. Okay, so it's a physical definition. Another meaning of bring up is very similar to the word mention. Mention. To mention something is to say it for one reason or another. For example, don't bring up anything about Kevin around her. So let's say we have a mutual friend, and she was dating another mutual friend that we have named Kevin. But why do I have a G there? The heck, get rid of that. Kevin, what's wrong with me? Recently, she and Kevin had a very bad breakup. very emotional. They had been together for 4 years and they broke up, and she's devastated. She's very upset about this, right? So we're getting together, a group of friends, and you don't know how bad this has been. Right? I'm her very close friend, okay? And you come over and we're going to get together and we're going to have some pizza. Bring up the pizza. And I just want to warn you, hey, don't mention this topic, please, because if you mention it, she is going to be very upset. All right? Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for bringing the pizza. Nom, 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 nom. Don't bring up anything about Kevin, okay? If you do, she'll be very upset. She's recovering from this horrible breakup, so we want to avoid bringing up the topic of Kevin because that is a painful subject, a sore subject for her. And so don't say it. Don't mention it. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up because otherwise she might cry. Okay? Thank you for the pizza. Nom, 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 nom. Another slice. Okay, so that's another common meaning. So far we haven't said anything about anything about kids or what. So what about that then? Yes, okay. This is about raising kids, children, as a parent. Now, you could talk about yourself in relation to who raised you, or you could talk about yourself as a parent who raised others. Maybe you've heard of the TV series called Raised by Wolves. Maybe you know the story Jungle Book, which is about a little boy who was thrown into the jungle, or left in the jungle, not thrown in, but left in the jungle, and actually grew up with wolves, raised by wolves. So that means that the wolves were the parents in a way. They are the ones responsible for teaching Mowgli, the kid in Jungle Book, how to hunt and how to get along with others and the law of the jungle, right? This sort of thing. So you could replace the word raised here. I raised my kids well. I raised my kid to be a good hunter. You could replace raised here with brought up. Now, brought up doesn't sound as good as a TV show name, so Raised by Wolves sounds better, right? Brought up by wolves, exactly the same meaning. So we might say something like this. I was brought up by wolves. I want to bring up my kids to be responsible adults. Does this mean I have kids? Does this mean they are adults? No. It could be that they're babies or your kids are 3 or 4 years old, or it could be you don't have any. What it means is, if and when I have kids, or with my current children, I want to make sure that they become that. So it's focusing on this process of teaching them, helping them grow up in a responsible way, giving them the right tools and knowledge to make them able to handle the world, right? And you could say who did it too. We often use bring up when we talk about who. I was brought up by wolves. Oh, okay. I was brought up by my grandparents, or I was brought up by my aunt and uncle, like Harry Potter. Harry Potter was not brought up by his parents. Why not? Because they were killed when he was a baby. So brought up is not about your physical parents. Usually people are brought up by their parents. Sometimes they're only brought up by one parent. Sometimes Harry Potter, for example, is brought up by his aunt and uncle who don't like him. So this just means that the process of teaching and educating and providing and feeding and giving clothes, that sort of thing, okay? So these are the 3 common phrases for being a kid and raising kids that I want to share. Phrasal verbs that you hear very, very often. Again, the key is really to learn them by example. The key is to make sure when you use them, you understand the context and you understand that phrasal verbs may have many different meanings. When you hear a phrasal verb in a movie, pay attention to the context, the situation that it is used in. If you pay attention to that, you practice making your own examples, you'll be more likely to use those phrasal verbs naturally. And that's going to help you expand your ability to communicate effectively. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay. All right. Rishab says, I'm Indian and I so badly want to learn American accent, but I can't be able to get rid of my Indian accent. Please help. Okay. Rishab, I want to share something with you. Gave me a perfect segue. I love that you asked that question. I am an English teacher. I've been teaching English for over 10 years. And one of my most popular courses is called Advanced American English Pronunciation. If you click on the link, the second link, I believe in the description, it might be first or second, I'm not sure which one, you'll see, and I'll pop over and show you what it looks like. You'll see, oops, oh, I'm way zoomed in. Let me zoom out. You'll see this, okay? Now, I have a bunch of different courses, right, on my website. This one is a very popular course. It is over 8.5 hours of lessons. It has subtitles. It has PDF downloads and audio downloads. And if you check out this one here, I'm very confident that this one will help you improve your pronunciation. If you really want to master an American accent, this is the course to take. Now, you might say, okay, well, yeah, it is a little expensive though, right? Yeah, it's $109. Okay, you could buy it for that, which is fine. A lot of people do that. What I would recommend if you don't want to do that is a yearly membership that is per month. Then you're not only accessing the one course, but you're accessing all of my courses for the period of time that you sign up, right? So you're getting all of these. In addition to that, I will add you to an English learning community where you can practice your English every day. And as you're going through the courses, I'll be there to help you. If you have questions, you can talk to me on WhatsApp or Signal. Hey, I have a question about this, or hey, is this pronunciation okay? Right? I'll be there with you. Also, at the beginning, if you sign up as a yearly member, you get a one-to-one level check with me. I will have a chat with you, video chat with you. We'll talk about where you are. I'll give you an idea about what I think you need to work on most. So I think that's actually a pretty good deal. And Sabir asks, do you have a Discord server where you can talk to us one by one? I usually do it on WhatsApp or Signal, and I only do this with a one-to-one help like this with members. So, I have probably, 15 to 20 people per day, just people ask me, hey, can you check this for me, or can you help me with this? I spend most of my time working on courses, to be totally honest. So usually when someone says, hey, help me with this, I just don't have the time in the day. If I helped all people with everything they asked, that would be the only thing I do all day. I wouldn't have time to make courses or do live streams or anything else. So I pretty much always can't do it. I have to say no. However, for people who are members, people who are yearly members, they can get help from me anytime. They are special people. I consider them very special. They have my full attention. All right? So that's how it goes. Sign up for that. I think it's a pretty good deal. If you think about the price, it's pretty good price. All right, let's see what else we have for today. And yeah, I use WhatsApp instead of Discord because more people are on WhatsApp than Discord. I like Discord. Find me an English teacher who wants to correct people's English all day for free, and I'll find you a person who doesn't have any other time to do anything else. Find me one. Find me one. All right. Let's see if I've missed any questions here. Grow out of a friend? Oh, yes. Actually, here's an interesting one. Can something grow out of... You'd have to use the word friendship, right? If it's a friendship, you can say our relationship, our marriage, our business, whatever it is, grew out of our friendship. So you have a friendship, and that's kind of the flower bed, and then the flower grows out of that. Well, what's the flower? Well, if it's two close friends, they might start a business together. A couple of guys nearby, they started a cider company, and that grew out of their friendship, or I think it grew out of their love of cider and their friendship, right? But you could talk about relationships that way. Two people started out as friends and then they ended up getting married or something like that. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good one. Absolutely. Did I miss any questions, guys? Anybody else want to share an interesting story about childhood? And that? No? All right. Well, we'll do another one of these on Friday. So Friday, let's see. I'm not quite sure what Friday's topic is going to be yet, but we'll be back on Friday. So on Friday, around the same time, if I didn't answer your question, get your questions ready. I will be doing Q&A on Friday. We'll be doing some other stuff like we did today. Different topic, of course. So hopefully you can join for that. And if you want to get serious about English, you can, number one, if you want, you can sign up for a free course on my website. And you can also, if you're ready to get really serious, check out the yearly membership, which gives you access to all of my courses. All right. Hope you have a good Wednesday. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for the great questions. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I will see you on Friday. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Workshop. I don't know if I'd call it a workshop. Let's call it... I feel like a workshop is more focused, right? And also I feel like a workshop is kind of more... A workshop is more interactive, right? So if we had a bunch of people here live doing stuff, then it'd be a little more interactive. I'd like to do a workshop actually someday. That'd be fun. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe, check out the free course. Go do it. Take care.